What's up, everybody? Guess what I'm going to be doing? My hometown state, Ohio. I'm going to do the roller coaster at Cedar Point. Rank includes Still of Vengeance, my favorite ride. Right, the new one, the new Still of Vengeance is my favorite ride. It is so much fun. If you guys go here to Cedar Point, ride Still of Vengeance. Make sure you put all your stuff in the lockers because you don't want your phone or screen to crack or anything to drop. So if I were you guys, make sure you put all your stuff in the locker so you won't lose it or have your phone cracked or anything. So make sure you enjoy all of these rides that I absolutely love. Except for the ones I don't like is those rough rhythm rides. I hate those rides. So I hope you guys enjoy. Get to this video. Give me a big old thumbs up, like, subscribe, and comment down below what's your favorite ride and what's your favorite ride that's all over the world, like different type of different states. Comment down below, and make sure you hit that post notification bell because you get more videos, back-to-back videos of my channel. So if you guys are new, make sure you comment, like, subscribe. Make sure you turn on post notification bells on. My name is Sam Dart, by the way. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's get this on the roll.
Hello everybody, my name is Dan and I'm from the Coaster Network, and today I'm bringing you my full ranking of every roller coaster at Cedar Point, America's roller coaster. You know, this is my favorite park I've been to so far, and I had a really great experience here on opening day, and beyond that too. I've been here several times, even when Mean Streak and Mantis were both running, and this park is just incredible. It sits on a peninsula at Lake Erie and features one of the highest coaster counts in the world, only behind Six Flags Magic Mountain. And for that reason and many others, I'm really excited to bring to you my ranking of all the coasters here. So I'm going to go a little bit in depth with each of them, and we're going to have a good time. So let's begin this ranking. Alright, so kicking down our countdown at the number 18 spot, we have the Intimate Kiddie Coaster, known as Wilderness Rock, formerly known as the Junior Gemini. This coaster is the first ever one built by Intamin, and would later go on to build much bigger and better rides at the park, like Maverick, Top Thrill Dragster, Wicked Twister, and of course, Millennium Forest. For a kid's coaster, it's actually pretty decent. It's surrounded by trees and forestry, which is very nice, and it even features a couple airtime moments, which is very cool. And yeah, it's your average kiddie coaster on the surface, but it definitely looks like a decent ride. Even if you're an adult, you'll probably still find a little bit of thrills, but I do think that you have to be with a kid to ride this. Don't quote me on that though. But definitely check this one out if you somehow get the opportunity to, and it's in the Planet Snoopy area of the park. Alright, coming in at the number 17 spot is Woodstock Express, the Vekoma Junior Coaster. In a world where Vekoma pretty much dominates many lineups of different parts throughout the world, like Woolly B. Holland, for example, this is the only Vekoma at Cedar Point. And it actually looks like a pretty smooth ride. The steel track looks pretty decent, looks like a bit of a long ride, and it definitely is going to be something that the whole family can enjoy and not just the kids. There's some elements here, which is very exciting, and it features a bit of a twister layout. It's also surrounded by the woods, which again add to the scenery and make the ride experience just that much better. I have not gotten to experience this one yet along with the Wilderness Run, but hopefully the next time I do visit, which will be this summer, I do get to experience this credit. As it stands, it's not a bad ride for the kids, and the families will also get a decent kick out of it. There's obviously much bigger and better in the park, but if you're a kid and you're looking to ride something that's more thrilling than Wilderness Run, this is definitely going to fill that void. At the number 16 spot, we have the Cedar Creek Mine Ride, the Aerodynamics Mine Train, and this thing feels very vintage, both in its look and its ride experience. It is a bit of a rough ride. It's not going to be the most comfortable thing, but it's not going to be unbearably painful like the corkscrew is at the same park. This is definitely a fun, cute little family coaster. It features multiple lift hills, it features a couple helixes and other elements. It's definitely not going to be like a highlight attraction or anything, but this one definitely fills in the lineup definitely pretty well for the family coaster. I would not be mad if they tore this thing down and replaced it with something like a GCI wooden coaster, but as it stands, it's not a terrible ride, it's just really underwhelming compared to the rest of the parks lineup. So if you're expecting a family coaster, you're going to get one. You're not going to get anything that'll surprise you. But on the plus side, it is a bit of a long ride, and the scenery is definitely very nice. It's got that vintage feel. It's by the water, by the trees. I mean, yeah, the kids and families are going to like it, but anybody who's even remotely a coaster enthusiast is going to want to ride something else. So let's move on. At the number 15 spot, we have Corkscrew, which is the aerodynamics moving coaster. Believe it or not, this was the first ever coaster to go upside down.
I hate that ride.
Features 3 inversions, a vertical.
I hate the Corkscrew, and I hate the Iron Dragon. Those are the most boring rides I've ever been on my life. It's boring and puts me to sleep. I'm down for a fast, awesome, fun ride. So, going back to this awesome video from about Cedar Point, all the rides at Cedar Point, you gotta absolutely love it.
And a double corkscrew. This coaster is definitely an icon for the park and was very impactful for the industry too. But it really shows its age even more than the Mine Ride in my opinion, because this thing, well, it's definitely a pretty big head banger. You're going to be banging your head left and right on this thing, especially during some of the transitions and turns. Really jerky. Not a fun ride. I was definitely in pain for quite a bit of it, but it is a bit of a short ride, so it's not terribly unbearable. Its location is nice. It goes right over the midway, and its use of double corkscrews is one of the cooler things I've ever seen in a coaster. They go right over the midway, so people are facing under you as you're riding over them, which I find very interesting and very cool. But overall, this ride is just not very memorable. You should probably get around to riding it once for the credit, but you really don't need to ever ride it again. At number 14, we have Iron Dragon, which is the aerodynamic suspended coaster. These suspended coasters, you're never really going to get a rough ride at all, which is definitely a good thing, but this is one of the boring ones as opposed to one of the more intense ones out there. I would call the Bat at Kings Island definitely more thrilling and superior. Some of the parts just feel very slow and just not very thrilling, even though it is a smooth ride, but I would still call this a great family coaster, but it's really nothing beyond that at all. You do get 2 lift hills with this thing, which is very cool, and it goes over the water at the end. And the swing motion on these things are definitely very cool as well. And yes, it might be a bit of a forgettable ride in many parts of it. There is definitely a couple of highlights throughout it that definitely make it from being a bad coaster. And I would not call it bad at all. I would just call it mediocre in my standards. Like it's stuff I'd much rather ride. Oh, and by the way, this thing also has VR into it as well. So this is a virtual reality roller coaster. And the VR in this thing, from what I've heard, is pretty good, but I have not gotten around to experiencing it yet, so I can't comment on it yet, but I know that the lines can get very long for the virtual reality. Also, yeah, there's no fast lane option for this ride. It's one of the few coasters that doesn't have it, so just keep that in mind. But, yeah, that's Iron Dragon for you. At number 13, we have Pipe Scream, the Zamperla Disco Coaster. I'm calling it a coaster. Some people don't. I know several people who don't call this thing a coaster, but I do. Yes, it does have powered elements through it. It's not a launch. But it uses gravity. It's got track. It's even got an airtime hill in it. I would call this more of a roller coaster and something that's just repetitive all throughout. Like there are some discos that don't have that airtime hill. I would not call this a coaster, but this one feels like one. It basically uses gravity completely, and you can feel it. It does not feel like it's completely powered. It uses powered elements when it needs to, but this thing definitely does spin, and it definitely does feature a couple of decent airtime moments, but it's a fun little ride. It's not the most thrilling or intense, but you're going to get a kick out of riding it for sure. It does feel a little sketchy at parts because basically you feel like you're going to fall off the track. I do find that pretty cool actually. It definitely adds a bit of charm to the ride, but I would still call this a hybrid between a flat ride and a coaster, kind of like some rides can be like a dark ride between a coaster hybrid, but this one's definitely a decent ride. Get around to it if the line's short, but otherwise you can totally skip this one. Most people don't even count it as a credit anyway. And now at number 12, we have the
No.
one and only Blue Streak, the Philadelphia's Toboggan Coaster
That ride
at
is
Cedar
closed down.
Point.
It
And let
tore
me just
down.
tell you, this thing is something you can either get a really good ride on or a really bad ride. Let me explain.
Bad ride
Sitting
for me.
in the back on a wheel seat is just a recipe for suicide. You do not want to do this because it's going to be a really rough ride. It's going to be really shaky and you're just not going to get much enjoyment out of it. But if you're not on a wheel seat, preferably towards the front, you can get a really solid ride on this thing packed with some decent airtime. It's not like amazing airtime or anything, but it's decent. It's good airtime, and it's a fun ride with lots of drops and hills. And I like that. I like these out and back vintage PTC wooden coasters quite a bit, but definitely have a soft spot for them. And this is a coaster that usually never even has much of a line anyway, so it's totally worth getting a ride on for sure. This thing definitely delivers the thrills, even though it might be not the tallest or the fastest in the park. It's definitely a solid, fun little ride, and just make sure you ride it correct. Also, just a little pro tip for you guys. You definitely want to try to have your legs up when the lap bar comes down. It's not going to fall down on the ride, and this will prevent you from getting stapled, and you'll get much more airtime this way. I highly recommend doing this. It'll just make the ride experience just that much better, and you'll get more airtime as a result. You also gotta love that color scheme too. The color scheme is a classic. So yeah, that's Blue Streak for you. At the number 11 spot, we have Wicked Twisters, which doesn't quite make the top 10, but this is a definition of a ride I would call short but sweet. It is a bit repetitive, and it's a shuttle coaster, which does knock a little bit off of this ride, but as it stands, it's a smooth, tall, and fun ride. You're getting some nice drops on this thing. The twisting is awesome, and the launches are also very thrilling. Unfortunately, you only go as max height twice, once on each side. I really wish you maybe did another rotation at the max height, but I can understand why they did it this way for capacity reasons, because these things are only 2 across, when in reality they should have been made 4 across, because it can only run 1 train at a time, which is a bit unfortunate, but then again, it is an Intamin coaster, and these Intamin coasters generally do that. But yeah, it's definitely a ride that is a bit repetitive. You're just doing the same thing over and over again, but you can skip it if you need to. But it's definitely a short but fun ride. Onwards. At the number 10 spot, finally counting down the official top 10 coasters of Cedar Point, is the Gemini. This is the Aerodynamics Racing Coaster. There's really not a name for this model because there's only one other coaster like it, and that's Excalibur at Valley Fair. But basically this is what an RMC coaster would have been like made 20, 30 years ago. Basically this is a hybrid coaster with a wood support structure and steel track, making it a lot smoother than your average wooden coaster, and also smoother, believe it or not, than a lot of aerodynamic steel coasters. The track work here is surprisingly smooth, and if you're in a front row, like not a wheel seat, you're going to get an extremely smooth ride on this thing. I was really surprised. It might not be the most thrilling because there are parts that definitely go a bit slower, but I think this coaster was meant to be a family thrill coaster hybrid. It's got the height and the speed of a thrill coaster, but it's got a lot of the pacing you'd see in a family coaster, and dueling definitely adds a lot more fun to it. So if you're not into really tall coasters, and you want to do something more thrilling than smaller coasters, this is definitely one to check out. It's definitely a fun, smooth ride, and even features a couple airtime moments. The best part though is the helix at the end where the tracks branch off. That moment is definitely great. If this coaster is dueling, it really is going to be a ride you want to get on for sure. Coming in at the number 9 spot is the new for 2016 dive coaster, Valravn. And let me tell you this, this thing is something that looks really good on paper, but in reality, it's pretty disappointing, and here's why. The other 2 dive coasters, which I have not been on yet, look a lot better because of the restraints is the main reason. This coaster uses the best restraints, which is nowhere near as good as the regular over-the-shoulder restraints. Well, yes, it's a bit more comfortable and you get no head banging, which is definitely nice. The rides just feel way too comfy and you don't feel exposed and you feel less force on the ride too. This is not a forceless ride though. The drop is pretty forceful and the inversions are also pretty forceful as well. But they would have felt even more forceful had they have used the traditional B&M over the shoulder restraints. That being said, the main drop on this thing is pretty cool. You get held right over 90 degrees. You're looking straight down. It's a very intimidating view. And then right after that, you just dive straight down, pretty great. And then you just kind of fly through this big Immelman loop. Yeah, it's just kind of your cookie cutter element. And then you're kind of just like swinging around like this turn here. And then unfortunately you pop into the mid-course brake run. This is kind of a disappointing moment of the ride for me because it really grinds the momentum down to the hull. But after that, you dive down another near vertical drop and then into a dive loop, which is a much better element than the Immelman in my opinion, but still not perfect. And then you get to the highlight of the ride, which is zero G roll. Great hang time, definitely the best part of the ride for me. Then after that, you kind of go through an airtime hill, which gives you no airtime, very pointless, I know. And then you kind of just dive right into the ending brake run right here. So this is a ride that's definitely a bit disappointing. It feels very short, it feels gimmicky, the momentum is halted, but it's got the stats as the tallest dive coaster in the world, and yeah. Alright, and coming in at number 8 is Gatekeeper, the Balaguer Navy Wing Coaster built in 2013. And this thing is super iconic. It's right on the beach, which is great. And it's also the first coaster you'll probably see when entering the park. It hovers right over the park gates and provides an excellent experience in that regard. And you have two sides on this wing coaster, the left and the right. You can choose the inner seat or the wing seat. Both provide different experiences, so I recommend checking out both. This coaster is really cool, the beautiful color scheme as well, I absolutely love that. And the height is pretty impressive for this ride too. It's a very tall ride. And right off the bat, you're going right into a wing over drop. Great hang time, highlight part of the ride for sure. And then as you dive down, you feel some pretty good forces in the back here. And then you kind of just go up and then kind of go into this inversion here, followed by an airtime hill, and I think this gives you a little bit of floater, but you're going fast, so it's not a huge deal. And then this is like a giant, like zero G roll. Very cool, very good element there. This is my favorite part of the ride, this massive zero G roll with two keyhole elements. I love it. You feel like your hands and feet are going to get chopped off. And there's another inversion there. Then you go through this another near miss element that makes use of the keyhole elements yet again as they're going around. It's an out and back inverting B&M, which is rare. Then you hit this mid-course run, which is kind of disappointing. It's just not really needed. Then you go into this helix, which is just plain stupid. You feel no forces on this thing. It's just a bad element. There's kind of a little airtime moment here, and then this meanders to the end. So, yeah, the ride isn't amazing or anything, but it's still a really good ride for sure. And even though it does have the best restraints, I could definitely think of worse coasters in the park for sure. This is definitely a coaster you're like, yeah, that was pretty fun. But it's not going to be one that you want to ride over and over again. That's my verdict. At number 7 is a controversial one. That is the one and only Magnum XL 200. And let me just tell you that this thing, some people hate it, but I actually like it. I wouldn't say I love it, but I like this ride quite a bit. There's several reasons. The lift hill, it's slow, but I actually like that it's slow because you get arguably the best view on any roller coaster I've ever seen, and that is going right over the water park, and you get a great view of the beach and Lake Erie. It is completely isolated from everything else in the park, which I do love. But unfortunately, this coaster is a little bit on the rougher side. It's not unbearably rough. I still find it much smoother than Corkscrew, but yeah, if you can get past it and try to brace yourself for some of the elements, it can definitely be a much smoother ride. And also, this coaster has a nice color scheme. Of course, it's great. And yeah, this coaster is just pretty tall. It's the first ever hypercoaster built, 205 feet. And then you kind of go into this big drop here. It's not the best drop in the park, but it does its job. It's fun. And then you go into this airtime moment. It's a very smooth moment. You get a little bit of floater, nothing amazing, and then you just kind of turn down into this tunnel. Nice hand chopper moment there if your hands are up. And you go into this other airtime moment, a little bit better airtime, but there are trim brakes on it, unfortunately. And then this is the cool part, the pretzel turnaround. Not too rough, it's a little shaky, but it's definitely a fun element, and I'd like to see this on more hypercoasters. kind of see it on B&Ms with the hammerhead turn. Then you go into several airtime moments, some in the tunnel, some out of the tunnel. These are all ejector. There's a lot of airtime during this portion of the ride. And let me tell you something, if you brace yourself, it can be pretty thrilling. But if you don't, it can be a bit painful, and this is where the most painful part of the ride is. But you definitely do get quite a bit of airtime with this ride, and the airtime is pretty non-stop too. You get a lot of it until you kind of reach into the final brake run as you kind of meander your way into the back of the station. But this is a classic ride, guys. It's really great to look at. Never has much of a line. This is definitely something you should experience at Cedar Point, because it's the definition of a true classic steel coaster, and I always try to get on it whenever I go to Cedar Point. It really is a sight to behold, even though the ride experience could be improved. At number 6 is the one and only Rookaroo. Let me tell you something, this is an awesome ride. It used to be known as Mantis, which was a B&M stand-up coaster, but it got converted into a floorless coaster for 2015 with a new color scheme. And let me tell you, all the renovations they did were for the better. I liked Mantis, but never loved it. But I actually love Rookaroo. This ride is definitely a must-do every time you visit Cedar Point. It is that good. It's a very smooth ride, it's a very forceful ride, and a long ride. Everything I love in a good coaster. But it does have a little bit of head banging, especially on a couple of those transitions towards the end. It's not painful, but it is there, which is a little bit of a detriment to the ride, but not by much. If that wasn't there, maybe it had an extra inversion, I would call this probably my favorite non-hyper or Banshee B&M coaster ever made. But as you start off, you're kind of going into this like little pre-drop section here. The drop is pretty cool. You'll definitely feel it. It's not amazing or anything. Go into a nice vertical loop, very fun element right there. Very good element. And then you kind of just go around into this Immelman. I think it's an Immelman or a Diable, one of the two. Yeah, you go into that. Very awesome. You go into this turnaround. Cool element, pretty forceful. You're always feeling force on this ride. One of my favorite elements, the incline loop. Nothing else like it. It is an inversion. It's awesome. Then there's some of this twisty motion, which reminds me of like Maverick. It's also here. And then there's like a mid-course where it slows you down not much. And then you go into this corkscrew final inversion. Pretty smooth inversion too. And you're definitely feeling some forces on these tighter turns. Very cool. Very Maverick-like moment there. You're twisting and you're feeling force. I love that this coaster does this. And some people say this part of the ride is pointless, but not to me. I actually really like it. And yeah, you kind of go into the ending brake run. I think this is a very well-paced ride with a lot of action to it. Definitely, highly, highly recommend it at Cedar Point. At number 5 is Raptor, the B&M inverted coaster, my favorite B&M at the park.
24
and
years
one of my favorite coasters in general at this point. I really like this thing. It is just a great ride. I really don't have any issues with it at all, believe it or not. I just find the next 4 coasters to be better. But this is everything. It's a moderately tall ride. It's a pretty long ride. Features 6 inversions, which is really good on a coaster like this. Color scheme is beautiful. The capacity on this thing is great. My only big complaint, actually, to come to think of it, is that it breaks down quite a bit for a B&M, which is super unfortunate, as I adore this ride. There's really not any other complaint I would have with it. It's really just a great ride throughout. And so as you start off, you kind of go into this nice curved drop, very standard on all B&M inverts, but still very fun. And then you just go into this nice loop. I like inverted coaster loops better than non-inverted coaster loops. All very fun. Great zero-G roll here. Very forceful. Love that moment. And then you go into a Cobra roll. If I had to point out any weak moment with the ride, it would be this one. But it's still a fun element, even though I don't care for Cobra rolls too much. And you kind of twist around and go into this part right here, and that will follow you down a bit. The only slow moment on the ride. And you don't even break it all here on the mid-course. And then you dive back down, another curve drop, very fun. And then you go through this really snappy and whippy corkscrew. I really like that element there, very fun. And then you're coming up on one of my favorite parts of the ride in a little bit. But here's another corkscrew, very good element. And this is my favorite part, the helix. Wow, this part is forceful. It'll make you probably gray out. This helix is absolutely nuts, and I love it. What a way to end out the ride. There's a couple more turns. Definitely very snappy, very forceful. You are feeling it. This is just an outstanding roller coaster. You really need to ride this every time you go here. Really great ride. At number 4 is the absolutely iconic Top Thrill Dragster, the Intimate Accelerator Coaster. First ever coaster to break 420 feet, making it a strata coaster, first ever one like it. Very iconic ride. It is just one element, but it's a really good one. You are absolutely flying at ridiculous speeds on this ride, and the launch is incredible. You have to wait a little bit before the launch, but it's totally fine. The colors, the theming, the bleachers, all of it's awesome on this ride. You gotta love that cue music too. This ride really just delivers, and you get a slight pullback before the launch, which is cool. Signifies you're about to launch, and you just blast off at 120 miles per hour, 4.5 seconds, and just launching to the top of this absolutely insane tower. Crazy. You get some nice airtime at the top too. You dive back down. Very exhilarating. This ride packs such a punch. But then the ride is over. That's my only gripe. It's really short. Yeah, this coaster should be short, but I would have liked maybe a big turn after it, something like I-305. That would have been really cool. But as it stands, this is definitely an iconic roller coaster. And if you want to get the best possible experience on this thing, definitely do a night ride in the front row. It is even more intense, and it is exhilarating. This coaster will leave an impression on you, even though you do wish maybe it could have been a little bit longer. But as it stands, this is one heck of a ride. And I would say this is worth driving to Cedar Point alone, but you have 3 other great coasters ahead of this. But I would say this one definitely kicks off what I would consider the big top 4 of Cedar Point. The 4 coasters everyone wants to go on. At number 3 is Millennium Force.
Yes,
you know what?
I love that.
This is probably one of the most
ride.
famous roller coasters ever built. The first ever Giga coaster. The first ever complete circuit roller coaster to go over 300 feet tall. This thing goes about like 92, 93 miles per hour. And let me just tell you, this thing is
awesome.
great.
He has
It
all
is
the
an
theme songs for
excellent
the
ride.
roller
And
coasters.
it's super long too. It's super tall, super long.
This is so awesome how he has all the theme songs to the Cedar Point roller coasters in Ohio. Because this sounds like a sci-fi music type of thing, which is amazing. This ride is the most fun, awesome ride ever. The hill is really, really tall, and it's a long ride. So, hope you guys come to Ohio. Please come here and go to this place. Cedar Point is amazing and it's fun. You will enjoy it. All over the world come here to Cedar Point. Come to Ohio, come to this place. It's amazing. You guys come here. Please do. Because I always come here every year. It's the best place ever. I love it. Let's get back to the video because these are the best rides ever. Some of them I don't like the wooden ride I didn't like. I didn't like the corkscrew. I didn't like the iron dragon because those are the least boring rides. Those are the least rides I don't like. They're boring as heck. I don't like them. So let's go back to this.
It utilizes a cable lift hill system, which I find really cool. Gets you up to the top much quicker. Great view of Lake Erie, and then you just dive down into this massive 80-degree drop. Exhilarating drop. One of my favorite at the park. You go over this fun overbank turn. Not super intense, but very fun. The elements are very drawn out. You're just going into some turns here that aren't the most forceful, but still very fun. There's a really good moment of floater airtime right here. Very good. I definitely like this one quite a bit. And then you kind of dive back down right here and as you go along into another bank turn. Not really overbank, but it is a bit more drawn out. Yeah, it's probably one of the weaker moments on the ride. Then you go into a much better overbank turn here. This one's definitely a lot more fun. And then you kind of just trudge along here into another turn. Lots of turns on this ride. Into a nice moment here of airtime. Mix between floater and ejector. I find this one really fun. I love the scenery. I love the tunnels on this ride. Very iconic, very thrilling. And this is a great moment of ejector airtime right here. Also very cool. And then you go into this like final big snappier overbank turn. Much more intense as you go into the final brake run. You're getting a very long ride out of this thing. It features a double loading station, so capacity is great. The view of Lake Erie is amazing. I love that cable lift hill system. There really isn't any big flaws, but I did notice on riding this it's gotten a bit of a rattle. I rode it in the back row recently, but I really don't see why this thing would get a rattle. It was made by Intamin, and it's a very smooth track technology. So, I mean, it is what it is. You gotta suck it up and deal with stuff sometimes. But I don't think the rattle takes away from it too much. But really, my only gripes about it is that rattle, and I wish it would have been like a little more snappy when going into the next elements or so. But as it stands, this is definitely a very fun ride. It's exhilarating in parts, for sure, too. And you gotta love a gauge coaster. You are going so fast, so tall. It really is a staple and an icon of the park. You have to get out and ride this. Coming in at number 2 is Maverick, the Intamin Blitz coaster, the first ever one of its kind. And it might not be the tallest ride at the park, but let me just say this ride packs an absolute punch. It stays low to the ground, features some good airtime, intense moments, and twisted turns. So let's get into it. So basically the ride starts off with an LSM lift hill, similar to that on Lightning Rod at Dollywood, where basically it feels like a launch and a lift hill combined. You're going up it super quick. It's only over in like a few seconds or so. And you crest over into a 95-degree beyond vertical drop. Extremely thrilling, especially for an Intamin. Then you go into some really tight and twisted turns that really provide some really good G-forces here. And then a really nice ejector airtime moment there. And back into some more turns. It's really good. Then you go into this nice corkscrew inversion, followed by another corkscrew inversion, which actually gives you a little bit of airtime. Very cool. I really love the layout on this thing. And then you kind of rest into some brakes here. And if you're a first-time rider, you're not going to know about what's coming up right here. And then you launch basically to 70 miles per hour. It might seem a little slow, but trust me, once you get going, you feel it. And then you bank left. Very thrilling, very fun. You go into a nice airtime moment here, a great pop of airtime. Then you're diving down. Very good here. Nice scenery, nice lake. Then you go into some more twisty sections. This is a very cool maneuver right here. You're just banking like crazy. And this one even more so. You are over banking. It's really nuts. Then you really get airtime there, and then you kind of just turn around into the brake run here. And what an exhilarating ride, you guys. It really delivers on all fronts. Outstanding pacing, outstanding layout. It doesn't have to be super tall, but it really delivers thrills in every category. If you want inversions, it's got it. It's got airtime. It's got speed. It's got a beyond 90-degree vertical drop. It's just a really good coaster all around, and I would highly recommend it. This is a coaster you could just straight up marathon and have the time of your life. And you know what? This is the best coaster in Frontier Town. That is until Steel Vengeance came back in town.
Yes!
And took Frontier Town back from Maverick. And let me tell you, this is probably the greatest roller coaster I've ever experienced.
Me too.
It definitely is my number 1 right now, and it probably will be for a long time.
Me too.
I don't think there's anything in the United States that can beat this monstrosity. So basically, it's a Rocky Mountain construction roller coaster, and these coasters are already very good. Because what they do is they take old, aging wooden coasters and convert them into fresh, new steel coasters, with still retaining that wooden coaster vintage feel. So basically, it has cutting-edge technology with a really retro aesthetic to give it just something that makes it feel truly modern, yet classic at the same time. But this ride is the tallest hybrid coaster at 205 feet tall, the steepest hybrid coaster at 90 degrees. It's also the longest one at 5,740 feet of track, and it's also the fastest airtime hill, the most airtime on any roller coaster with 27.2 seconds. It absolutely breaks every record. It's the world's first hyper-hybrid coaster as well. So let's get into it right here. So basically you leave the station and already you can tell it's going to be a lot better than the old Main Street coaster. And you already have a couple of really good moments of ejector airtime. Very slow, but they're called like bunny hills at the beginning. Very slow, but very cool. Sets them right up to a great mood. And now you're cresting over this incredible drop. Your stomach is mush at this point. 90 degrees. Quick, snappy moment of airtime. And then this awesome big airtime hill with a great dive off of it. And then my favorite moment of the ride, or one of my favorites at least, is Outer Bank turn. Really good. Crazy amounts of airtime. And then you kind of rise up into this zero-G roll. Very fun. Very thrilling. This overbank turn right here into the flying snake dive, which is a very intense moment on the coaster. You're doubling down, then you're doubling up and turning into the mid-course brake run, but you actually don't lose any momentum here because usually the trims are turned off. And you turn and dive back down, which is even more intense. I absolutely love it. And you go through a couple of airtime hills and a double up there, great. And you do this outer bank turn leading into a normal bank turn, which I really love as well, into this good outer bank. Overbank turn, and then zero-G roll right here. I love that. And a couple of good airtime hills. And you're in the structure here, which I absolutely love. This is a sideways moment of airtime, and another good zero-G roll. This is just pure insanity at this point. You really can't tell what's going on. But I love the part in the structure because it's just absolutely crazy. Head and hand chopper moments. But also, that's right, 5 consecutive airtime hills leading into the finale. That last bit of airtime, man, it delivers on all fronts. You feel like you are flying out of your seat. It really is all of RMC goodness packed into one outstanding ride. And this coaster absolutely just crushes it all. It really just, I can't even figure out what to say. Like, it really.
So, if you guys love this video, please give me a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you turn your post notification bells on, and make sure you leave a friendly comment down below, and make sure you give me a big thumbs up. Thank you guys for watching this awesome video. Hope you enjoy everything about Cedar Point. My hometown is Ohio. This is the place I always go every year with my friends. So next year I'll be coming back here next year, and I hope you guys enjoy. And if you guys from Ohio, make sure you comment down below what is your favorite roller coaster in Ohio. This is my favorite one. It's still Avengers this year. This is my favorite one this year. Is the Still Avengers of this year. So if you guys enjoy these awesome videos, comment down below what is your other favorite roller coasters that's different states of you guys, are you guys from, where you guys are from. Comment down below what your favorite rides are, and what's your favorite food that you get every time you go. So comment down below. I hope you guys enjoy. Have a blessed day. Bye.